How's it going, guys? And I'm here with the review of Death of Superman. Now, this I didn't even know was coming out. A friend lent me this movie, and I have to say, it totally blew me away. This has got to be one of my favorite story arcs in any comic book series. Now, I know Superman, for whatever reason, around the Superman, Batman versus Superman movie, around BVS, I don't know if it's just a lot of negative connotations around that movie, just for what it was, but, you know, many people seem like they really, really showed a hatred for the Man of Steel. And a lot of my friends were even like, I didn't even know they were closet Superman haters, talking about how much Batman was and how much they wanted to see Batman kick Superman's ass and all this and that. I'm like, I don't understand. Superman is just a classic American comic book hero. The design, just perfect in every way. The character, it's like, I understand that many people see it as Superman is invincible, that nothing could beat him, and that kind of makes him boring in a way. But then again, isn't Thor, and even to an extent, isn't even Iron Man, the invincible Iron Man? It's very hard to kill these guys and everything, and the Hulk, it's very rare, really, when you see these guys really getting, their ass handed to them. So, for me, I always bring up the fact that in the 90s, they really introduced a lot of really good characters to the Superman universe that were really giving Superman a hard time. Now, I don't know what time like Metallo and all of them showed up, but like I started reading comics in the 90s. So many times when these comics would come, these are the characters that were in there. And then I would see back, the comics that my dad would read, and, just based on the old 50s show. And, Superman would just kind of be fighting thugs and everything. And sometimes, there would be a mad scientist coming up with a scheme to stop Superman in his tracks, whatever it was, trying to freeze him, trying to, make him lose his memory, whatever the case may be. There was always somebody there to thwart Superman. And that was the thing when I never got. So he's invincible and everything, but it was fun seeing these stories and everything. But, for the most part, Superman was invincible. It would just kind of be a little bit predictable. He'd get in a situation and then he'd get himself out of it pretty much like, he would be in peril at the beginning, and then by the end he would just, save the day like he always did. He'd save Lois, from getting kidnapped or from some type of terror or whatever the case may be. But then Death of Superman came along, and right away people were like blown away. And I remember I bought the book, with all the stories put together, starting from when Doomsday breaks out of an underground lab, and he confronts all these different members of different superheroes. You've got Superboy, there was Supergirl, and you know, there really wasn't a lot of like star-studded characters like in this movie, which I say is, definitely an improvement over the comic. I'm not saying it's better than the comics that encompass this story, but you've got Batman, you've got Wonder Woman, you've got Green Lantern, you've got Aquaman there, you've got all these defining DC characters, and they just weren't there in the comic book story. So right away, you could say that was an advantage that this had over the comics. That this little feature presentation, this little animated presentation, had over the comic books. So Superman, for the first time, was going to be faced with an enemy that he just simply couldn't beat. And he'd fight this guy until he actually did beat him, but it would cost him his own life. And this was like devastation. I'll never forget the artwork. Metropolis was left in ruins. This guy went like he was in Smallville. He like terrorized all these different towns until he eventually got to Metropolis. And it was just an epic battle. And I remember this was a real page turner. First he started off covered. You couldn't really see what he looked like. Then, as the battle wore on, all these different superheroes came at him. It was tearing away, and he finally got to see the bony, muscular beast that was underneath. And As far as this cartoon goes and how Doomsday looks, he looks better than he does in Batman versus Superman. I guess that's a given. But I don't know. I still kind of prefer the way how Doomsday looked in the Superman Doomsday special, but the artwork as a whole is just better. He just looks more defined here. But I just don't get why they couldn't draw the bones over his eyes. Like, that to me, I thought that looked awesome in the comics, and they just didn't have that there for this series. But, so we talked about the comics. We'll talk about just how this animated feature looks. Okay, for right off the bat, I don't like the way how Superman looks that much. I'm not really digging the black S on the back of his cape. The little things on his sleeves. I just don't like this look for him. And I get that he's like looked this way in a few of the different animated stories. I forget if he was in Flashpoint Paradox, and I think he looked a little bit different. I think he was in that movie, which, by the way, is another good DC movie. I just don't remember all of it. It's been a while since I've seen that, about a year and a half ago, and I've kind of forgotten a little bit of the specifics, But that was a great story, and, once again, this is obviously out of the same studio. They did a really good job with this one. So, first, you've got Superman. He's battling with the idea of revealing to Lois Lane, if he wants to tell her if he's Superman or not, and he's struggling with that decision. And the parts with Lois Lane and Superman, this might be kind of minor to the whole thing that's kind of going on with Doomsday, and a lot of this has changed around. For instance, I said the Justice League is not there. Lois already knows that Superman is Clark Kent, that Clark Kent is Superman, however you want to say it. By the time this comic actually rolled around, that had been long done already. They had already kind of solved that problem, I think, maybe in the 80s or whatever it was, whenever they kind of did the big reveal finally. So, but this makes it a little interesting. I think they did the romance very well. And I like it because when Superman dies, you see how depressed Lois gets. And, it had me choked up at the end. It really did. So I kind of like that they did that. They put the emotional in there so then when Superman's death eventually comes, you feel it. And it really tugs at your heartstrings. And I really enjoy it. And the battle with Doomsday is just downright epic. I mean, the way how they just put this all together, I mean, this is a battle. This is way better than anything I've seen in the already great 90s Superman TV show, the cartoon. I mean, they just put this all together. It was like a dream come true, and it looked excellent in every single way possible. The animation is on point. It's fluid. It looks great. Like I said, I have minor, issues with the design of the characters. Like, I don't know, Doomsday just kind of looks a little bit off to me. Not just the bones not going over his eyes, but there's just a few things with the design overall that I don't really agree with. Especially the same thing with Superman's suit. But they did get it right, having the cape fluttering in the wind that's stuck on that stick right at the end, with all the rubble of Metropolis laying all around. This was excellent. Everything all together when I watched it, I was just blown away. Just having the Justice League there for backup definitely aided this this movie quite a bit. I was happy that they added things. They weren't afraid to change a few things up, like Doomsday coming from space, instead of breaking out of the lab. The suit where he's covered up is a little bit different, but I like it. There is quite a bit of throwbacks to those 90s comics, which I really appreciate. And since those comics were so exciting for me as a kid, seeing it played out here, just animated wise, it was just a dream come true. It really was. Everything just flowed really well in this little animated feature, and I definitely recommend it for you guys. So, go check it out. It's really good. It's a really entertaining one. Like I said, it's gonna get you choked up at the end. Unless you have a black heart. I mean, really, it's like if you have a love for Superman, a love for the comics, and you enjoyed the Superman, back when you were a kid reading those books, definitely go check it out.